Morning, Rick. Is this Eric?
Yeah, hi, Bobby.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
You want by Rick as well. Thanks for joining in.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Can you hear me okay then? Sounds like it.
I can. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
See if I need to move my... I may stream this on Facebook. Are you going to be okay with that, Eric?
Do what?
Stream on Facebook.
Oh, I'm not in on Facebook. Do you have to be?
You don't have to. I'm just saying that this will stream to the chapter page.
Oh.
If you don't want to, we can post it later.
Okay.
This mic is not visible, is it? How's everything? Oh, someone else is trying to enter. Okay, I'm gonna mute my mic here. Appreciate you guys being early. Jeff, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Appreciate you guys being early.
Always got to make sure the tech's working.
Yeah, I hear you. That's always something when technology. Jeff, you don't mind me asking, who do you work for?
Work for State Farm.
Oh, I heard it's State Farm.
Or I should say a large insurance organization.
How are you liking it? Do you think you'll do a lateral move to Texas or Atlanta? What's it looking like for you?
No, I'm planning on staying here in Bloomington. A lot of opportunity here for those of us who want to stay. So I'll just stay put. My wife and I own our own business too, so it's not one that's mobile. So I'm planning on staying in the area.
I got you. I appreciate you staying in Illinois, being an Illinoisan.
Oh, I'm an Ohioan, but transplanted Illinoisan. Yeah, so I've been here. I've worked for State Farm for 20 years, so not planning on going anywhere.
That's good. You guys still continuing your agile journey?
It's never ending. It's iteration after iteration.
That's crazy. I'm gonna mute my phone, okay? I mean my mic, not my phone.
Sure, I'm gonna get some work done while we're waiting.
Sure thing. By the way, just a quick reminder, unsolicited plug. There's a March 19 event, early morning, so hope you guys can make it. Eric, it's free for any government employees, so please join if you can, if you're
What
scheduled.
is that again?
March 19, we have 4 panelists doing lightning presentations. It'll be 20 minutes each. So they'll speak about any responses or outcomes to around COVID.
Oh,
And we have a change management expert as well. She'll speak to the psychology of how our brain reacts to crisis. Her name is Barbara Troutlin. So it's kind of a long event description, but we have 4 speakers.
okay.
Yeah, it's free if you could socialize with, we'll see if I can put it in the competency SharePoint site. It's free for all government employees, be it city or county or township employees. Just on our system, you can register for free. Here, let me see if I can, I'll share my screen for a second here.
Hello, you're on mute.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I just wanted to show, before you hop on, Scott, I wanted to show this March event.
Okay.
Or this one right here. We're having an early morning meeting as a response to, or, so Eric, can you see my screen? I'm sure.
I can see it. Yep.
Yeah, so this is all our panelists. Doug Page will speak from ServiceNow from a tool perspective, and then Barbara Troutlin, like I mentioned, she'll speak from a human psychology perspective and how our brain reacts to crisis. She's a change management expert. And then Laszlo, he will moderate his information consultant in the security space. Then Sabi has worked for the city of Portland. So he will lessons learned from what they have done at the city of Portland. He's a CISO now for a community college just outside of Portland. And then Kevin will extract his experience from the military and how he has applied that to his work at KPMG. And then also just, I think it will be a good conversation. We have 4 panelists, like I mentioned. And then we will also have a breaking it down session where we will actually do additional 20-minute discussions as lessons learned. So I think that will be a great event this coming March 19. Again, it's free to all government employees. So we have about 7 minutes left. Scott, I didn't realize that a lot of people will be joining. So if you don't mind, we'll wait for about 7 more minutes.
Yeah, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. So
yeah, go ahead, please. Please
I'll be
do.
back in a minute.
Jill, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Good afternoon.
Hello. Now, is that Darlene, DK Ling? Is that, I'm not sure if that's Darlene, our volunteer for the chapter. I'm gonna pause this record. I didn't realize it's recorded. In the meantime, I'm not sure if we will have a lot more people join, but I'm going to start the introductions. With us as well is our chapter president, Pamela Clapp. My name is Bobby Taruk, VP for Publicity, Marketing, Social Media. Scott, thank you again for joining for such short notice.
My pleasure.
Is the chief scientist and VP as well for PMI HQ. So Scott, thank you for speaking to us. And Scott, I'll just pose a few questions, and I think you know where I'm going, where this conversation is going. Number one, help us understand what citizen development is. That's number one. And number two, it's a movement, and it goes beyond, as I read about it, it actually goes beyond PMI.
Yeah.
Why is, I need to admit someone in the meeting room. Why is this movement important to PMI? That's question number two. And help us understand as a chapter, how can we champion this movement? What kind of service offerings do to embrace and adopt this movement and really trickle it down all the way to our members?
Yeah, definitely.
I know
Okay.
that's a mouthful, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, definitely. So citizen development is a movement. It's an industry-wide movement. It's been going on for a while, but certainly it's been picking up steam in the last year or two. So it's all about using low code or no code IT platforms, or software development platforms, I should say, to be more accurate, where the idea is that pretty much anybody can build these applications. Arguably you do need a little bit of software expertise, but you don't need a computer science degree, and you can do it faster and often at a fraction of the cost if you're in the right situation. And that's the caveat. So but there's a few things. So there's to make this work, you have to understand the tools that you're working with. So that's why I say there is a little bit of expertise needed. You need some training in the tool, like, obviously, right? So there's nothing truly free. And you need, more importantly, particularly from our point of view, is you need a system in place to oversee the process, the environment, the tooling environment, governance, risk mitigation, if you really want to do this right. Citizen development is not shadow IT, but it can devolve into shadow IT if you don't know what you're doing. So what you need to do, so if you take the opportunity to learn more about citizen development, there's the citizen developer role, but there's also architects involved. There's also governance folks involved. So there's adult supervision, basically. So it's not a free-for-all. And I think this is where in the past movements like end user computing have fallen down. So I actually started my writing career in the early 90s, talking about what has become UX or design techniques, many of which are actually part of citizen development, but also about end user computing. So how do we bring software development to the masses? How do business people build their own systems, right? And how do you support that? So in many ways, it was so things I was writing about were like a very phenomenally early version of citizen development, several decades ago. And because the problem back then and still today is the tool vendors will spin a really good story about how you can bang out applications really quickly. And it's absolutely true, you can, but that's not the full picture, right? Who the heck's going to run these things? Who's going to maintain them? Who's going to evolve them over time? What are you going to do when you need to move beyond that? And I'm happy to tell you a story about that. Actually, I will tell you a story about that. And so, what's the full life cycle? And more importantly, how do you know? So one of the great things about citizen development is that the very first part of the process is basically a triage effort, where you make a decision of, is this straightforward enough that you can do, pure citizen development? So a business person just start, using the magic tools to bang out an app, fine. Or is it a situation where you clearly want business people driving it, but you're still going to need some IT help, right? Because there's some complexities. You got to integrate with some existing systems. Some other system needs to be evolved in order to get access, give you access to whatever functionality you need or whatever data you need to make your application work. That's going to be a lot of the apps, I believe, in citizen development. And then the third thing the situation to worry about is this just too complicated? So yes, it's great that you want to, bang out a quick and dirty app to get the job done, but no, this is really something way more complicated than you think. Here's why, and the IT people need to do this, right? So, obviously with business involvement, but IT is going to drive it. And so the great thing about citizen development is that it's phenomenally clear about that. Right, and this is one of the values that PMI brings to the table on this one, is this overall realistic view of when to do it and how to do it and how you make it work in practice, and that I think is absolutely critical. And these are the sorts of things I was writing about a long time ago, and the issue was that I was seeing the very same issues that we've been having lately with the low code, no code environments. We were seeing 30 years ago as well with the end user computing tools back in the day. And it was basically, great tools. Yes, you can build something, but all that extra stuff surrounding this development is where the challenge actually is. So how do you bring a more mature, more robust view of the universe to this? And there's myself and there's a bunch of others that we were like lone voices in the wilderness for the most part. And sure enough, and if you don't even know, many of you probably haven't even heard of end user computing. So that's how well it did in the marketplace. So, or somebody going, oh yeah, I remember end user computing. Wow, yeah, it's been decades since I thought about that. So it'd be one of those things. So anyway, and that's okay. So my story. So about a year or so ago, at PMI, PMI, as you know, purchased my organization, Disciplined Agile, in myself, Mark Lyons' organization, in August of 2019. So roughly, a little more than a year ago now, we realized that we needed to spin up some functionality to find training workshops, right? So you want to be able to sell, so we were basically coordinating with REPs, now ATPs at the time, to help them market their training workshops, right? So you needed to be able to go to the site and find training. You do a search and, I'm in this part of the world, tell me what workshops are coming up, type of thing. So we needed this functionality. And we had been doing this by hand for the most part for a long time. Somebody would send an email, an admin person would then say, hey, get the details from you, and then they type it into a web page, and the web page would come up, that sort of thing, right? So we needed something more robust than that. Our IT people didn't have time to build it, and that's a fairly straightforward thing, right? That's just like a couple tables and a search page, and then a display page for the information. Really, really simple. But our IT people didn't have the cycles to do it. So we went with citizen development. So we brought in a small consulting firm, FTI Consulting, to build us this functionality, which we then put on the site. And it was up and running until about 3 weeks ago, when we finally replaced it with the real system. And so what was interesting was that we had real business functionality, mission critical business functionality, that was developed very quickly, a lot more quicker than the IT department could have done at the time. Just due to lack of people. Like, yes, they could have done the exact same thing themselves, but they just didn't have the people and the time to do it, and it wasn't a high priority for them. So we went the citizen development route, built it, installed it, ran it. After about 6 months, I don't remember what the requirement change was, but there was a couple of requirements changed. Did to get it updated. Not a big deal, and then redeploy it, do do all the usual IT stuff, and then continue on. And like I said, we just basically turned it off a few weeks ago when the overall, the official PMI approach to finding training was deployed, which you can actually get to from the homepage at pmi.org right now, and in the menus and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, so here was a classic example of where citizen development made a heck of a lot of sense. And so we did it because it made sense and it got the job done. So anyways, so that's a sort of CD in a nutshell, I guess. But the thing is, and the major thing to remember is that it's about more than just the tools, right? You go beyond what the tool vendors want to sell you. And the tools are important, don't get me wrong, you need the tools. But you need to look at the overall process. You need to look at the overall, how are we gonna make this work in practice and keep it up and running, right? So for example, so part of my story wasn't just, we banged something out really quickly and then deployed it, and then it just ran forever and ever and ever, and we're all happily ever after type of thing. That wasn't the case, right? We had some changes to make like 6 months or so later. So we had to re-engage with the citizen developer to update, talk with them, update the app, get it deployed, right? If we had lost that person for whatever reason, then we would have had a problem. Now somebody else would have done the work, but potentially would have had the problem. And of course we had to operate and all sorts of stuff. And eventually we retired it because it ran its course. And it was a stop. In this case, it was an example of a stopgap measure. But then again, too, many of you have probably seen IT systems that were only supposed to be up and running for 6 months, and then 20 years later, you're still using them. So it could also very, very easily turn into that sort of a situation too, and it would have worked. It would have been fine, right? There would have been the occasional update, but other than that, things, I have no doubt it could have worked for 20 years. Had we decided to go that route. So what was the second question? I've lost track. Sorry.
How do you see, if other chapters are already doing this, how do you foresee local chapters championing citizen development, and how can that manifest in our chapter offerings?
Yeah, so definitely. So Citizen Developer will soon be available through the affiliate program. So you'll be, so the chapters that want to, resell it and all that good sort of stuff will be able to do so, because we do have training offerings. We have a foundations of citizen development. It's either called Citizen Development Foundations or Foundations of Citizen Development. I can't quite remember the title. But anyways, it's an introductory e-learning workshop. Hopefully sometime later this month in March, we will be deploying or releasing the Citizen Development Practitioner Workshop, which is a more robust go into the details for the people that are actually building these things. And so that will soon be available. It should be available by the end of the month. I don't have an exact date though. So I reached out today and couldn't get the exact date, but towards the end of the month is the best answer I've got right now. So very soon. And so there'll be that opportunity very soon for the chapters. Chapter members, I would suggest start, learning about citizen development and start bringing these ideas to your organization. Start floating the ideas, and present to your management team, and start experimenting with it. Right, start looking at some of the low code, no code environments that are out there. One of the neat things about the foundations workshop is that we have in one of the lessons we have links to a bunch of videos to several, I think to 5 vendors. Various products, and each product is different. Like they're all the same basic idea, but they all have their approach and their style and their target market. So good for them. And so you can start looking into some of these environments and start experimenting, start applying them because they work. There's some very good tools out there, but like I said, you do want to look at the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, this is really great news to us, Pam, because we've been scratching our heads on how we can embrace and champion it, and how can we manifest this with our chapter offerings. one of the things, I know we have about half an hour still to go. Actually, one of the participants here is actually a business analyst, and I also studied business analysis. One of the things that struck me was that we need to be engaging business people as well. So Eric, do you have any questions? The way I see it, it seems to me, and I'm a big proponent of this is that the business analysis of the problem we're trying to solve has to come first. So Eric, sorry to put you on the spot. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, I think really from this, really willing and able and skill to take on something like this. I mean, now you're taking, because they're already familiar with the business and they're fairly technical, and they're not necessarily code crunchers, which you don't, obviously you don't have to be with this. I mean, you know enough that you can talk to the business, and then you can, you can be technical enough to pick up these tools and apply what the business needs without really needing a programmer. So I think that's going to be great for business analysts.
Yeah, definitely. And in the technique are some modern analysis techniques like brainstorming, like a bunch of ideation techniques. There's a few ones like collaborative, basic agile modeling, collaborative mock-ups. A technique that we call really round robin, which is basically round robin brainstorming plus low code development or no code development right there in the room. So or in the virtual room, as the case may be. So yeah, there's a lot of great. It's very analysis. Stakeholder collaboration friendly agile modeling type stuff. This is all really solid material, and these are techniques that there's a few tweaks, a few new ideas, but there's a lot of really proven modeling and stakeholder interaction techniques that have been around for a long time there, and we're really bringing some very good practices to the forefront on this one.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Scott. I don't want to delve into the security questions and concerns around it yet. I know we have some architects in this audience. I'm taking a look at the names. Scott, do we need to be concerned at all about, as an example, the data architecture that what we're trying to build? I'm not a developer, so I just have a very high level perception of IT as a system. So
yeah, fair. Yes. With a quick answer would be, I hope so. So one of the things, it's so this is really like I said, end user computing for adults. So it's not even like this. So I'll get back to be wary of some of the marketing rhetoric from the tool vendors, right? So one of the things we do in citizen development is we make it explicit that you need to be talking with the architecture. And it's not just data architecture. It's like system architecture, security architecture, many other things. So you have to, so one of the early steps, earlier I was talking about triage. Well, part of that triage effort is you bring an architect into the room to, so you might do some initial analysis and bang out some prototypes and stuff like that. But quickly you get to the point where you realize this is real. We want to build something. Right. And it's at that point that you reach out and you talk with an architect and maybe a few other people as well. And you get them into the room and you say, okay, here's what we want to do. How should we proceed? So you've got to do the triage, right? So is this straightforward enough that you can use the low code tools and get the job done that way? So for example, in the system that my team had built, the architecture was pretty simple, right? It was like a couple pages, a few data. I can't remember how many tables it was. It wasn't a lot. It wasn't enough to worry about. It really wasn't. And I've got a fairly deep data background. So, but anyways, it didn't pass. 5 tables maybe. I don't know what it was. And so and it was one of those things. And we just migrated the data later on when we needed to. But that was a fairly straightforward thing. So as a result, we were able to go CD. Now, but the architect could have also said, you know what, you really, yeah, that's great, but for this function, for this, and this, you need to interact with these systems over here, or you need somebody to work on this, or you got some interesting privacy issues on that one, or whatever the issue happens to be. So therefore, you need IT help. So now it becomes a business and IT partnership issue. Or it's like, well, you're way over your heads, and this is mostly an IT thing, or we've already got this, in progress right now, and you didn't know about it, and we're about to release in a couple months. So starting something up right now probably isn't the way to go. So that sort of a discussion has to happen. So yeah, you need to talk with the data. You need to get involved with the architects fairly early on to make better decisions as to whether or not you're get on the right path, basically.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? I do have one question to follow up, but I'd like to open the floor to questions from the audience.
I guess I'll just make a comment. This is Jeff Havens. Going back to the comment on the reason why a lot of areas or a lot of businesses are using EUC is they don't have the bandwidth in their systems department to do a lot of these things. And what I have run into personally is they don't have the architecture bandwidth to review what you're doing, and a lot of them are smaller applications. So, the architecting isn't anything super special, but a lot of times they won't even look at them. So just to comment, how would you go about getting around that, or how do others get around that type of situation?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think if you want to make CD successful, then you really do need, maybe you need to staff up your architecture team a bit more. And I that's hard to do, and budgets, yada yada yada. So, but at the same time, you don't want to get in shadow IT, right? You really don't. And because yes, nice short-term stuff, but then it makes a huge mess almost always in the long term. And then so then what happens is the business bangs out some stuff really quickly, gets the job done, that's great. And then they tend to either, and if they can run it themselves, then why not? But as long as you don't want to share your data and a bunch of other issues, but or they bang out something really quickly and then they throw the mess over the wall to IT, who then gets stuck with really poorly developed stuff in many cases. And then now the problem's even worse, because not only do they have to develop it, they've also got to support the existing stuff and migrate the existing stuff, and all this extra work has been created. And then of course we blame IT for being overloaded and slow and all that sort of stuff. So it really, just from a protect yourself point of view, from an IT point of view, I would want to step up and get architects involved when needed. But it's also an issue that if it's something as simple as you're creating a spreadsheet or something, okay, fine, that sort of stuff's happening all the time. But it really gets to the point of, if you're using these low code, no code tools, very quickly you're going to get into a situation where you really do need, you do want to think about it from an architecture point of view, because more than likely the data issue is what's going to get you. And it'll be, I want to produce some new functionality, but I really do need to access some data over here, and probably want to update it as well. And then suddenly that a little more skill than what some people appreciate, or the testing issue as well, right? How do you know you've actually built what you think you built, and how do you know that it actually works well? So there could be, so it's that the sniff test of how complicated is this, and what are the implications of what you're doing? Because what you think you're doing on the surface, and then what really needs to happen to make it work can be very different sometimes. But yeah, if you're developing truly trivial things, then yeah, just go off, hopefully, and do it. But it's that next step up when things become a little more interesting. Then you really do need, it behooves you to do a reality check. And the thing is too, if it's trivial, then the architect says, yeah, it's trivial, yeah, go for it, woohoo, move on. So yeah, be smart about it, I think is what the issue is here.
Any other questions from the group or audience? Scott, I have a question.
Sure.
So if just looking at, if, let's say a large enterprise wants to implement a use citizen development. So where do you see CD fitting into the demand management, or if we have something like a project and program PPM tool as it flows, where does it start in demand management, or do you see it as starting as a project right away as it moves through the approvals process?
Well, that's a good question. We've actually been dealing with that ourselves on the DA team. And so in theory, note the use of the word theory, it should start with your portfolio management effort. And because somebody's come up with an idea, right? Hey, I need an X, whatever X is. So that's a classic portfolio management thing. It should be prioritized. Somebody should think about it. So that's the theory. The reality, though, is in practice, I need an X. I can build it myself. Why would I waste my time holding a meeting or filling out a form or contacting, however it is that I interact with the portfolio management team to get X on their radar scope? Then I got to wait for them to fool around and prioritize and understand it. So here we are, weeks, months later, of useless bureaucracy. In the long run, it's pretty much useless bureaucracy. In meantime, I would have built it and had it up and running with no interference whatsoever from the portfolio management folks. So which path is the most attractive one to me? See, so that's the practical reality of it, right? So, but then you've got the problem. Now we're then more than likely I've just in that second path, which is probably what I would take if I was a business person. Then now I'm probably in shadow IT land, and I'm probably going to mess it up, not knowing I'm messing it up, of course, because I'm really happy that I got something banged out really quickly. But now I might not be running my own show. I might have quality problems. I might have opened up a huge security hole that I'm completely unaware of. I'm pretty much guaranteed to be injecting data quality problems into the overall picture, because I'm probably capturing data once again in yet another location, right? So I'm not the source of record. I've introduced another source. So data quality just went down in the organization, right? So there's all these issues that I'm probably oblivious to that are still important. So this I think is the fundamental challenge. So and this is why really like citizen development walks through these challenges and says, hey, this is relative. If you want to do it right, yet still do it streamlined, because this is the problem, right? So the business will avoid the portfolio management folks, just like they tend to want to avoid the IT folks, because they just inject grief and time and risk and bureaucracy, and it's just not fun. So why would I do that? And yet there's still value to be had by working with those other teams. So, how can we got to get to the point where we can streamline all this. And maybe for the portfolio management folks, the triage, there's got to be very quick triage, right? It's like, if I know to go to them, they've got to be very good at the sniff test of, wait a minute, that's a CD thing. Here, go talk to those folks, or here, just do this, and go wait, because they don't want the noise either, right? To be fair to the portfolio management folks. So there really is an issue there, but. So as an organization, we need to figure that sort of thing out.
Yep, absolutely. So we have some people in here that work for large organizations. Pamela Clapp, for one, our chapter president, works for a large hospital organization. But right now, I want to ask the folks at, I think we still have folks from State of Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology, state government setting that is. Mary or Eric, how do you foresee value at Do It as an example to use citizen development?
Well, yeah. So the value is in time to market. It's in, like, it really is, right? And it's in filling in the gaps that maybe IT just can't get around to, or will never get around to to be more accurate sometimes. And yeah, but an example that my team, that I gave earlier with my team, we added value like really quickly. It was a time to market issue, but it was also we ran the business. Well, one aspect of the business we ran for almost a year on a CD platform, and rightfully so. So there's so I would argue that value is always going to be in the eye of the beholder, and it depends on your situation. But there was no real question about value, right? It was a blatantly obvious thing, and it was just and we tried to do the right thing, the right thing of going to IT first and saying, hey, can you build this for us? And the answer is no. It's going to be it's going to take a long time. And sure enough, in practice, it was about a year. So which you can't. I couldn't wait a year. There's no way. So we got it done quickly and well, right? That was the other thing too.
Yeah, for sure. Any comments for people who work in large organizations? I know larger organizations have very codified policies around projects. So please do chime in here. What do you foresee as the value for your organization, or what do you foresee as risks that need to be addressed, or even concerns, not necessarily risks at this point, but concerns? So Pam, do you want to get us started?
I think healthcare might be a little bit different too, because of the type of information that we're dealing with when we introduce things. But we do have a lot of structure around how things get approved. We do have a team that we call our innovation team. And so they do handle a lot of our quicker turnaround things. They're specifically digital innovation. So they make apps and things that can go really quickly. But in your point about that, our biggest struggle is the bureaucracy around getting things approved and how quickly that happens. So COVID, I've seen as a positive to addressing things faster in some organizations, because the need of things has been increased in the speed of which you need to turn something around. So we've put in rapid, we call it rapid because we're trying to stay away from the term agile, because agile means a very specific thing. So we call it rapid governance or rapid project management to get things delivered faster. But those have been kind of our struggles.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I hear this sort of story a lot. And the story is almost always, we were as slow as molasses before COVID-19. We fooled around a lot. They don't quite say it that way, but that's the message, right? We horsed around a lot, and everything was slow and inefficient. And then suddenly, COVID hit and reality hit, and in order to survive, we stopped fooling around. So I would invite you to observe that and take the opportunity to improve your processes. And to make these changes permanent once, when and if we ever get back to, whatever some new normal becomes. And that won't be anytime soon, by the way. But certainly something, it'll get better eventually. But I would not go back to the old bureaucratic ways. Now, there's some good reasons sometimes to have some of the bureaucracy, but if you found ways to improve upon the bureaucracy, then I would not throw that out. Once you have the opportunity to potentially throw it out.
Yeah, and we found that really just people have always been sidestepping no matter what we do. Like you said, they're always sidestepping. And so trying to find ways to be rapid enough, agile enough so that people don't feel they need to sidestep anymore, that it's okay to be part of the process because it's going to work the way it works. So, and it's meant to work. So that's been our really big focus. And so I like that you address kind of those things that we see all the time. People just kind of went over around us.
Yeah. And that's a good point too. So and this is a harsh statement, but I think it'll resonate. So if you're sidestepping your governance process in order to get through it, or you're creating artifacts simply for government, just to shut somebody up, and I got to check my little box off that I created this artifact and reviewed it in such a way and used this template, and these people blessed it and sacrificed a chicken and whatever it is you do to get through a quality gate. So basically, if you're faking or sidestepping it, you're not really governing. That's not governance. It's not. It's bureaucracy. And those are very different things, right? So your governance process is failing, and you're injecting risk and cost into your time into your organization, into your process. So it really is a failure of governance if people are sidestepping your governance process. And what's really interesting, and this is a truly harsh observation, is can the governance people even detect that the process is being sidestepped? And having done audits, I would argue that I've seen a lot of governance efforts that are being easily sidestepped and it's not being detected. Either they just don't have the ability to detect it, or everybody knows it's happening and they look away. It's either way, that's not governance. So we've got to do better. So yeah, choose to observe what you're doing now during COVID times to get the job done. And I'm sure you can make it better, and because it can be better. Like, if we do end up going back to the office, or whatever subset of us go back to the office, then we can make these processes better because we're located close to each other, but we don't have to go back to the old bureaucratic ways.
Yep, absolutely. Any comments, concerns? I know a lot of people in this audience are from large organizations.
Yeah, so while people are thinking about that, being in a large organization is not an excuse. I've worked in organizations of hundreds of thousands of people in regulatory environments. I started with end user computing in a large regulated bank in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's and then that's not as regulated as healthcare, although they tend to think that they are, but they're not. But it's close enough, right? It's close enough. But still, but yeah, so it's not the fact that you're large. It's not the fact that you're regulated. It's the fact that you choose. It's really up to you. What do you choose to do? And I would invite you to choose to look at CD and Agile and more importantly, Disciplined Agile, and choose to improve, choose to get better, and choose to think outside the box. So just like Pamela was saying, COVID-19 has forced a lot of organizations to really rethink the way that they work, because the old ways just were not getting the job done. And there's still a lot of opportunity for improvement in the vast majority of organizations. So and it's hard, change is hard, and all these things are hard, but choose to experiment and try, take a look at CD and try it out. And particularly if you're in a large organization, it's all pretty much zero. I would argue it's zero risk, because you could spin up a CD experiment or several CD experiments, and you've got so many other things going on that you could spend a fair bit of time really looking into CD. And even if it was a complete and absolute failure, it's not even a round-off error on the bottom line if you're in a large organization, right? So it behooves you to run these experiments. I highly suspect it won't fail, but it behooves you to run these experiments and to learn and to ask, how can we get better? So yeah, in a large organization, I will always just throw risk management at any argument on that one, and it's effectively low risk. It's like just zero risk, pretty much zero risk, because it'll just round off to nothing, when you look at the real numbers. So yeah, give it a try. And if you've got permission to do it, great. Even if you don't have permission, be careful. But there's a lot of innovation in large organizations is done through stealth, for better or for worse. So wish it wasn't like that, but we all know it is.
Agreed. Any comments? And I think we can finish with my last question, but I want to give an opportunity to people to ask a question or a comment. Scott, one of the last things I wanted for you to cover is how does citizen development dovetail into DA, Disciplined Agile, and Flex for that matter? So paint us a picture for that. How does the two either complement or enhance or enable each other? So tell us how that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's an enablement thing in many ways. So it's interesting. So about a year and a half ago, I was brought in on some of the original strategizing around CD and reviewing and good stuff like that. And it fit, specifically to answer that question, actually. So and it fit really well. And the thing I really liked and still like about CD is the fact that it really is like adult end user computing, and it looked at the bigger pictures just like DA does. And so the interesting thing, so now that the technique is more formalized, I guess you can say, in the form of courseware and the book and consulting services with via FTI consulting and others. Is that it really does bring a disciplined approach to the citizen development picture. And so we're in the process right now of bringing some of the defined techniques in citizen development explicitly into DA. Pretty much all of them were there, right? We didn't really have any sort of a stream to go off and do CD, like pure CD, but certainly any other type of project, why not, right? But certainly, we want to have explicit support for that sort of a work stream. And there was a few techniques like really around Robin that I want to call it explicitly, and because really around Robin, if it's brainstorming plus prototyping on the fly, basically. So the two separate techniques were in DA, but I want to make it bring it together, make it explicit, seeing as it's a named technique now. So fair enough. And so you'll start seeing updates to the various aspects of DA for that. Certainly it fits in phenomenally well with the exploratory life cycle in DA, which is based on lean startup. And if I'm throwing around terms you don't understand, I apologize. But anyways, we have an explicit lean startup based exploratory life cycle that really is all about fast prototyping, bang out an MVP, get it out there, experiment, run the day, assess it, act on what you learned, and then explore an idea. And certainly the low code, no code tools are ideal for that. So it's a very CD-ish thing. And CD calls it basically that sort of a scenario as well. Slightly different terminology, but basically, doing MVP, lean startup MVPs with marketing. So yeah, so there's a lot of really good stuff there. I think but it's also we are working in parallel, right? So there's some terminology differences which will be there probably forever. Just like there's terminology differences between DA and the PMBOK guide and PMBOK guide and the ACP stuff and so on. So we do our best to consolidate and be reasonably close to the various things that we do, but there'll always be differences because it's just different groups of people working on things, and we get out of sync with each other, and it is what it is. So reality, right? So there's that. But yeah, so they fit hand in glove. They really do. And like I said, the CD is near and dear to my heart. This basically where I it was the start of my writing career, almost 30 years ago now. Wow, time flies. Yeah, it would be 30 years ago. Yeah, it's 2021. It would be 30 years ago. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So before we end, I want to make mention that you can follow Scott. Scott, I don't know if you still have enough room to connect on LinkedIn. Please connect with him on LinkedIn. If at a minimum, please follow him on LinkedIn. He continues to blog on this topic around citizen development, DA, everything that's going on with PMI as well. So please follow him on LinkedIn. We post this recording on our Facebook page. We'll put all of our contact information, including Scott's. So if you have any additional questions, you'll have the contact information for Scott. Please look towards the chapter. We will continue to brainstorm on how we can, again, embrace this movement of citizen development that will manifest in chapter offerings. Pam, any other announcements, anything you'd like to share?
No, just make sure that you continue to watch our website for events. Thank you, Bobby, for setting this up and being a champion for our chapter of looking into the new and innovative things in project management world as a whole. So thank you guys so much today.
Okay, Scott, again, I want to thank you for joining us, spending time with us for such short notice. I want to thank everyone who joined us today as well. This was, again, this was short notice, but I'm really surprised and elated that a lot of people joined us today. So we may have more of these in addition to Lunch and Learns. Really would like to learn around this topic. Again, we're trying to brainstorm how we can further serve our chapter members and even non-members. So we're continuing to move towards that direction. Scott, thank you again.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Day, everyone. We will end the conversation here. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.